And how about now we transition to our next? And how about we bring in our guest of the week, and that will be Hendrik from South Africa. Hendrik's going to be talking about an app that he wrote, and then I'll be demonstrating that app later. Hendrik, do you want to talk to us about this app?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me, Maran and everybody. Yeah, see the Uno barcode reader that I wrote. I found that Android has a lot of apps in that, but some of the apps do not have the features that I wanted. And I'm very impatient sometimes, so I decided to write my own ones that I can do with and put in the features I need. There is still a lot of work on it, but at this stage, I'll most probably release it only 1st August on Google Play Store for feedback on what is needed, what is wanted, any suggestions. Like Warren mentioned now also to me earlier, when you do the scanning, it picks up the barcode, but it doesn't give you immediately a product name. That is why at the moment you have to look it up on the web, or you have to know what you have in your hand so you can type it in and save it to your phone. And then when you do it again, then it will tell you which product it is. I'm still looking for a good barcode lookup program to do that with. The other thing was with the generating of barcodes itself for using on your own products and that. Like my sister also told me, she's got like 10 different tubs of that looks the same and feels the same. But then you put the stuff in the deep freeze or in the fridge, and after a week you can't remember what is in which one. Now I've got at this stage, I only got 4 PDF templates on there for different sizes of barcodes. I still want to improve that also. But what I experienced was that if you print a barcode, I want to be able to print anywhere on the sheet, because sometimes some of the labels are damaged. Like say for instance, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the top, but somebody pulled off number 3. Now you don't want to waste everything, so you can choose now you want to print on number 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, and 5. So, or you can say you want to do 7 of the same label or what. There's still a lot of improvement coming, but yeah, at this stage it is working for me, and I will be looking for suggestions and people to test it.
So Hendrik, tell us, take us back. You've told us as to why you decided to write this. Now, also, we understand from our earlier conversation, that you are also a blind person like us. Now, what were some of your challenges, writing this? Because this is not your main work. You have a work that you do, your 9 to 5 job, and then this is like something you do on the side, just like a pleasure kind of thing. How difficult is it for you as a blind person to write a program, and what would your advice be to, upcoming aspiring young blind people that would like to get into programming and be able to write apps and things like that?
My biggest thing was because I'm self-taught. I didn't do any courses or anything. So I had to look up everything on the internet and decide on which language to start with. I started with C++, but yeah, that is a bit of a difficult language. And then I went over to Java, but then I wanted to program for um, machine learning also. So then I found Python. So I did a lot of Python because I do a lot of TensorFlow with Python. Then I use my Windows 10 machine for that with the WSL, the Linux subsystem that I can open in my command prompt. Then it's accessible for me. The biggest problem I sit with is a lot of stuff on the internet that you learn of is not accessible for blind people. They put in like a graphic there with code on, for example.
Yeah.
Then you can't read what's on that graphic. So you must try and figure it out or go and find another place where you can get the same information. Same with the YouTube videos and things like that, that they do explain a lot of stuff excellent, but they just start typing. They don't say what they're typing. And there's no manuscript. So yeah, you have to try and figure out what they're doing, or go find a manuscript in that area and try and figure it out. What I would say to anybody that wants to start programming, doesn't matter if it's for the computer or for a phone or whatever, you must decide which language you want to do. Like I use Flutter and Dart. It's not so difficult, easy compilable, and runs excellent on Android. I haven't tried it on iOS because I'm not an iOS user, but don't go and study now for 5 years and think you're going to know everything. The problem is there's so many plugins and things. Just get to know your basics, your variables, your for loops, your imports and things like that. Everything else will come. Decide what project you want to do and then learn those plugins you want to use, because you won't be able to learn all of the plugins available out there. Learn what you want to do and start doing it, and then learn and read the documentation of the stuff you are going to use. You're going to do much quicker and get much further.
I have
I
a
agree.
question for you, Hendrik. Oh, sorry, Warren. Maybe you had another one.
No.
I have a question for you, which is when trying to develop and when developing applications, and I as I am a developer myself, I was confronted to that situation. There is always somehow when you have to write some kind of graphical interfaces, and how does that process went for you when you created your applications regarding the creation of the user interface to make sure that every element is properly placed on the screen and there is no overlapping and such things? Can you share with us some ideas about that?
No, that's excellent. That is why I actually use Flutter and Dart, because if you want something to overlap, you have to write code for it, because everything is they say everything is a widget. So to get the perfect graphical user interface, there I lay out the way I want it, and then I will ask somebody afterwards, how does it look? But because I use speech, I can hear where all my widgets are on the screen itself, where my buttons is, the containers for my cameras, or at the app bar at the top. I can lay out everything. I don't have to go and say I want it 3 millimeters or 4 pixels. I can do that, but it's not necessary when you use the widgets and the material widgets. Then it places it automatically for you where you want it. And if you need to move it, because I need to get sighted people just to look at the layout and the coloring and things like that. After they said, no, this doesn't look good here, maybe move it a bit there, then I can just refactor that specific part and maybe move it there. There I need sighted help, unfortunately. But most of your widget you can lay out the way you want it without having coordinates.
That's very interesting, actually, because it's somehow when you are talking about development and application development, and especially mobile application development, there is always this kind of user interface in the process, and it's kind in the path, and it's not that easy to figure out how to place things and how to arrange widgets and so on. So of course we won't go into much detail regarding software development, although it can be a good next in focus section for another episode. But still, that's very good to know, and I will be very delighted to if you can point me some resources to start on developing on Android.
Well, personally, I looked at React Native. I looked at JavaScript. Those ones also, but they all were building switches and bridges that slowed down and can bottleneck. What I again found with Flutter, it doesn't build the bridges in that. It uses a lot of your hardware, your native code itself, because a lot of the stuff with Gradle and that, it converts it to Java.
Okay,
so
nice.
If I were you, I would go to or Dart itself, but Flutter development. They've got nice stuff on there, and you will see if you know. It's basically if you know C number or one of those languages. It's very similar to that. So you'll pick it up very, very quickly if you know your, like I say, your basics, your variables, your for loops, and everything like that. Then you'll pick it up like nothing, and you'll see there's so many plugins to do with. It's unbelievable. Like Google ML Kit has now also come as a standalone one that I'm doing with text detection and things like that. So your plugins is massively, and they're developing every like 3 months. There's a new one out on the upgrades of your Flutter itself. So yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
Thanks a lot for these resources.
Wow. I always find the programming really interesting. I really want to get started with it, but I still haven't found the right place. But I mean, you obviously gave me an inspiration to get started, so thank you so much for that. And I have a question for you. I was always wondering how you actually upload an app to the Play Store. How you get it just ready, and then what steps do you take to upload a certain app to the Play Store and just put it in there for people to install?
Yeah, that is the one thing I am self-working on, because this will be my first one. I'm first getting in South Africa, converting to rand, from dollars to rand is a bit more. So that's why I'm only releasing beginning August, because you have to first open a development account, and then you can upload from there. So you have to break it with Flutter. I'm not sure with the others. Flutter, you break it down into bundles for different platforms of your Android, like your 7, 8, 9, your 64-bit and those things. And then you have to upload it on there. You can first send out links to people to test it, but you always have to change your version number. But it doesn't look too difficult. I tried F-Droid, but yeah, that is not for me. So yeah, I decided not to go to Google Play Store, because that is the one everybody knows in anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So what people do is, while developing the apps or while developing ROMs, they test it on emulators, not phones. And these emulators, they mostly don't have TalkBack, or they don't have any way to enable TalkBack. So did you use any emulators for testing, or directly on the phone?
I can use emulators. There is actually on Android Studio, they've got a few nice ones, but because I use the camera with all my programs, I have to develop on my phone itself. So yeah, I have to reboot it a lot to get some of the stuff out of it. But the emulators I can actually use, but then I just need somebody to activate the TalkBack for me on the emulator itself. Then I can use it for other development. So there is some emulators out there that is accessible, but because mine all use camera, because most of my stuff I'm going to do is machine learning, I use the camera itself, and that doesn't work on the emulator.
Yeah, as long as you are using some specialized phone hardware like a neural engine or a camera or sensors, it's always difficult to use emulators to simulate things. You can in some ways, but it's very limited, and often it kind of doesn't work at all. So, well, to my
that's the
experience.
truth. That is the truth.
Well, good. Thank you so much. Hendrik, we'll be coming back to you to give us a little bit of your Android journey story.